It's great to have you with us from wherever you're tuning in from. For more information about Elevate Church or to contact us, head to our website elevatechurch.me and take us wherever you go by downloading our Elevate Church AU app. We hope this message inspires and helps you to take your next steps in your journey.
We're good. Anyway, good that you're here. You didn't get swept up in a tornado this week. You're still got 2 feet on the ground. And yes, we're talking about being set free. Now, let me get into this. Enough about the weather. Have you noticed that there's almost always something in life, and I'm including your life, that's changing? You know, parents, you know this. Parents, when kids are young, you come home from work, you step in the front door, you say, "Everyone, I'm home." And Junior comes sprinting up to you, so excited, best part of their day. You're like a rock star in your own home. You're like, "Ah, yeah." And then fast forward about 10 years, and you come home from work, and you open the front door, you say, "I'm home," and silence. Nobody cares anymore. Things are always changing. You know, what about work? Oh, I love my job. My job brings me so much joy. I love the job. I love the people that I work with. I love the person that I work for. And then, you know, a restructure happens and people come, people go, and then you find yourself working for a boss that you no longer quite like, someone different, and all of a sudden, I'm not sure if I like this change in my life. Some of you might have noticed that our bodies are always changing. Hello? Those of you who are north of 40, maybe north of 50, I can tell you this, I'm north of 50, I can tell you this. When I started into my late 40s and early 50s, hair started falling out of places I wanted it and started appearing in places that I didn't want it. And I was just confused. I'm so confused. What a very strange phenomenon. Our world's always changing. You know, the economy is changing. Political parties are changing. Global geopolitical landscape's changing. We wake up to the news in the morning. I wonder where a war has begun today, somewhere in the world. And look, it's kind of a reminder, and dare I say a cautionary tale, that if we tether our joy to circumstances, then what's going to happen is our joy is going to fluctuate dramatically. You know, if we tether our joy to relationships, then when they're good, our joy's up. When they're bad, our joy's down. If we tether our joy to our work, when we like our job, our joy's up. When we don't like our job, our joy's down. And, you know, and the list goes on and on and on. So the question I want to ask today is there something we can ground our joy in that's not always changing? So we launched 2 weeks ago this series, Set Free. And the big idea is that God wants his kids both to be set free and also to live free. And what we're doing over this series is we're looking at some of Paul's, what are called collectively his prison letters. Now, Paul was a leader in the early church. He launched churches. He got persecuted for his faith and for his influence because the Roman authorities saw him as a threat, and so they locked him up on many, many occasions. And when he wrote letters, we have a collection of many of those letters now. Some of those letters he wrote from in a prison situation. And it's easy to miss that fact because actually when you read some of these prison letters, Paul's themes are about joy and freedom and what Jesus has made possible for us. Almost like, are you sure he wrote these from prison? And look, the reality is it reminds us that not all prisons have bars in front of them. That we can be prisoner to things like small thinking, fear, destructive habits, bitterness, lack of purpose. We talked about that last week. Unforgiveness keeps us in prison. No bars, but very much living in captivity. And then Paul, on the other hand, is proof positive that you can be physically in prison and yet your soul and your spirit are absolutely living set free. So week 1, when we launched this series, we talked about what it means to be set free from shame, that Jesus not only set us free from the penalties of our sin and our past, that he actually has made it possible for us to learn to and experience living free from the patterns of our sins and our past. Salvation is an event, and sanctification or transformation is a process that Jesus wants us to be set free and ultimately to live set free. Last week we talked about what it means to be set free for a purpose. This idea that yes, we're saved from something and we're also saved for something. And then when we start to discover what that something is, we realize that we were created by God on purpose for a purpose. And it's a game changer. So today, just probably obvious by now, but I want to talk about what it means to be set free to rejoice. And I love what C.S. Lewis, very famous, you know him from the Narnia Chronicles and such things. He said this, that joy is the serious business of heaven. And I want to put it to you today that joy, supernatural joy, is available to every person who's placed their faith in Jesus. So let's take a dive into that today. Let's start with this letter. This is one of Paul's prison letters. If you've got the Bible app installed on your smartphone, you can scan this flow code. It's going to take you to Philippians chapter 1. So the last 2 weeks, we were looking at Ephesians, which is the letter that Paul wrote to the church in Ephesus. This is a letter Paul wrote to the church in Philippi. Now, just to give you some context and a bit of the backstory, this was the first, prior to being imprisoned in this particular moment in Paul's life, this was the first time he'd ever been beaten by the Roman authorities. It wasn't the last time. It was the first time. So you think, well, that's going to be pretty deeply ingrained in his memory. You never forget the first time you got beaten by the Roman authorities, so they say. And so that was him. He got thrown into prison. Incidentally, you can visit, as a tourist today, you can visit the actual prison that Paul was put in. It is literally nothing more than a hole in the ground. So he was dropped into prison. Plus, while he was in prison, he was such a threat that he was physically chained to a Roman guard 24 hours a day. Now you think, oh, okay, that doesn't sound great. No, it doesn't sound great. Because think about this. There's bad breath. There's body odor. There's personality clashes. I mean, this guy is here next to you, chained to you. You're 24 hours a day. You know, the shift changes, but it doesn't mean things get any better for Paul. Plus, and here's one of the most challenging things. In those days, the Roman authorities were not in the habit of setting trial dates. In other words, we'll let you know. Or maybe we won't. We'll come and get you, or maybe we won't. So living with uncertainty, come on, think about that for yourself. How many of you love living with uncertainty? This was Paul's situation when he wrote this letter to the church in Philippi. This letter is now nicknamed the letter of joy. Okay. And you'll come to see that Paul chose to intentionally not focus on the negative things that had happened to him, but on the good things that God had done, was doing, and that he expected to continue to do. So Paul starts this letter writing to the church in Philippi. How about you say these words that are bold and underlined with me when I get to them? Every time I think of you, Christians in Philippi, I give thanks to my God. Now, look, this is not how this letter should start. This letter should start with, you're not going to believe what happened to me. If I could take a selfie, I'd send you the photo and you'd think, there's no way, that looks horrible. That just looks like a hole in the ground. Who's that guy you're chained to? What's that all about? When's your court date? Every time I think of you, I give thanks to my God whenever I pray. God, how could you let this happen to me? God, this sucks. God, you don't even care about me. Every time I pray, I make my requests for all of you with joy. For you be my partners in spreading the good news about Christ from the time you first heard it until now. What in the world is going on here? How in the world is Paul focusing on joy, knowing his circumstances? Well, here's the thing. Let's find out. I'm going to share 2 of Paul's pro tips to how we can experience supernatural joy even when our circumstances aren't the sort of things we signed up for or voted for or are happy about. Here's the first one. Know that God won't quit on you. Now, I don't want you to put your hands up, but just think about it. Be honest with yourself. How many of you have ever quit something? Now, some of you can give yourself a pat on the back because there's a list of things that are good if you quit on them. You know the classic, I quit smoking. Good. I quit a toxic friendship. Good. I quit bad-mouthing people. Good. So these are good things, good quitting. 5 years ago, during lockdown 1.0, one of our team members let me know that they quit taking a daily shower. Bad. Rumor has it that people all over the world quit exercising. Now, I'm not judging anybody here, but I have it on good authority that there are homes all over the world filled with treadmills and exercise bikes that are now utilized for hanging up laundry. I've just heard a rumor that that's a thing. But here's the great news. God always finishes what he starts. Always. And Paul reminds us of this. He's telling the church in Philippi, say these words when we get to them, bold and underlined. And I am certain that God who began the good work within you will continue his work until it's finally finished on the day when Christ Jesus returns. Now, Errol, you have a t-shirt that has this on it. Becky has a t-shirt. Now, we released a t-shirt about, 4 years ago that says started, continuing, finishing. And it's literally taken from this. But there's so much good news. This is just one verse. There's so much good news in here. Let me start with the beginning bit. Do you know that when you put your faith in Jesus, you thought it was you? Did you know God had already begun a good work in you before you even reached out to him? God had your grandma praying for you before you'd even shown any interest in Jesus. God had people investing in you. God was starting to soften your heart so you'd be open to hearing the good news. And at some point, God put you in a physical situation where you got to hear the good news. God began the good work in you. And here's another reason why that's great news is because God always finishes what he starts. So, if God says he began the good work in you, great, I can't wait till you finish it. And here's the thing, that means that our responsibility is simply to open ourselves up to him doing, continuing, and finishing the work. Like a piece of clay in the hands of a master potter. He will ultimately finish what he starts. So doesn't God... Paul's pro tip number 1, God will not quit on you. And here's the second one. This might maybe seem a bit more of the obvious one, but as much as it's obvious, you might be able to think of a time where you weren't doing this or forgot to do this or got so consumed by the negative circumstances that this didn't even seem possible. So again, remember, this is Paul's list of bad news while he's writing this. He's not free to go where he wants. He's chained to a Roman guard 24/7, and his future is completely uncertain. And yet, he doesn't choose to focus on any of that. In fact, I love it. This is what Paul chose to write next. And read this along with me, the bold and underline. I want you to know, my dear brothers and sisters, that everything that has happened to me here, and he's not saying it's good, just like it's not denial, ready, has helped to spread the good news. For everyone here, including the whole palace guard, knows that I'm in chains because of Christ and because of my imprisonment. Most of the believers here have gained confidence and boldly speak the message without fear. Here's the thing. This is like God, like the Romans were playing checkers while God was playing chess. See, the Romans thought they had Paul captive in the prison, but Paul knew that God had the Romans captive in the prison, and as long as he was in the prison, that he had a captive audience. Do you know who got to hear the good news about Jesus? Every single one of those Roman guards who got sucked in by God and got chained to Paul. And as long as you're there, guess what I'm going to be talking about? I'm not going to be talking about the weather. I'm not going to be talking about sports or the stock market. I'm not going to be talking how much this place feels like a dungeon. You know what I'm talking about? Jesus. And guess what? You have to listen. Every person that served Paul a meal, guess what they heard? They heard the good news about Jesus. Paul, like the guard that Paul's chained to, is probably counting down, like waiting for his shift to end. Paul's counting down because he wants a fresh audience. Bring on the next one. I'll tell you who's captive here. Every single one of the people that works in the Roman prison. They're the ones that's captive, because it's not people that keep us captive. It's situations that we allow. God can set us free and actually cause things to do exactly the opposite of what our circumstances will look like. Wow. Fresh meat. Now, Paul, I mean, he's in prison by the Romans, so that's obviously not a vote of that they're his favorite person. But they weren't Paul's only haters. Check this. Paul starts talking about a group of people that were out in the wild preaching about Jesus, but they were doing it for their own interest, in their own motive. And he'd heard about that. And he says, well, okay, sure. They don't have pure motives as they preach about Christ. I mean, they preach with selfish ambition, not sincerely. And incidentally, they're out there intending to make my chains more painful to me. And you're going to see in a moment, Paul starts to actually rejoice about his haters. So haters aren't a new thing. We call it that now. The haters. They're not a new thing. Incidentally, Paul's haters were Christians. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. That's a spicy topic. So you don't have to acknowledge it, but anyone have haters or experience haters? People that come after you, tell lies about you, or the most recent group, the keyboard warriors, who slide into your socials and leave snide comments about what the world needs to know about you. So every week, we as a church meet here, our live experience. We also publish an online experience. Facebook, YouTube. YouTube's the dominant platform there. Do you know that we have haters on the YouTubes? Yeah. Let me show you just a few. And these are just from the last 2 weeks. I mean, I think I'm going to make the point by just giving you just a few and just from the last 2 weeks. But you love this, Ethan. Here's one. This one. This is one from last week. The message we put up there, more theist propaganda. I don't know what that last word means, but apparently it's an adult word. So someone that was their best contribution to the comment section there. This one was a bit spicy. This preacher should quit and make room for somebody else. Wow. All right, but no, these aren't people that lead churches. These aren't preachers. I mean, these are armchair experts, Anyway, and then this one, by the way, you ready for that? You saddle up. This one, I think you got a little bit dunked on.
Oh, us?
Yeah. Nice lukewarm message for a lukewarm audience. Incidentally, coming in on my Vespa this morning, I would have loved to have been lukewarm. That would have been, I would have thought that as a pretty big win. But here's the thing. Paul's showing us that haters aren't a new thing. And if Taylor Swift has taught us anything, is that haters are going to hate. They aren't new. They ain't going away. No, but this is only YouTube, and this is only the last 2 weeks. So I'm not going to take it back any further. And by the way, I could start to tell you about things that people have been saying about me in real life over the last 18 months. And if I did, that you wouldn't know whether to laugh or cry. Like, wait, what? And the saddest piece? Like Paul, 100% of my haters, the keyboard warriors and in real life, are Christians. None of them have ever led a church, but, don't let your lack of qualifications disqualify you from being an expert. Hello? So here's the thing. I know that's none of you. So I'm just going to say a comment that's not directed at you, but I want to say it because I want us to make sure that we inoculate ourselves. Number one, with this sort of stuff going on, like inside the church, have you ever wondered why some of your non-Christian friends have no interest? Because they deal with this stuff Monday to Friday. Why in God's good name would I want to sign up voluntarily on a Sunday and come and join in a group of people who do this sort of stuff? Ooh. Secondly, and I'll just say this as a bit more of a social commentary, in Australia and in other countries around the world, people are quitting church leadership in droves. And some of it, not all of it, some of it is because of this stuff. It's like, I don't need this. I'm just going to go and get a job cutting cucumbers on a FIFO site in the middle of nowhere. And not only are church leaders quitting in droves, churches can't fill the vacancies because people aren't like, why would I want to put myself in that situation? So, more honor, more encouragement, less hating, that'll be great. Incidentally, Paul, he put up a playbook about how he dealt with the haters. And I kind of take this as well. Like, I don't need a hug by all this incident. I don't need a hug. I'm good. I like it, delete. Paul had a very similar response. But that doesn't matter. The haters are going to hate, but that doesn't. Remember this pro tip? Paul chose to focus on the good news. Yes. There's haters, but that's the bad news, but I'm not focused on that because that doesn't matter. Here's what matters. Whether their motives are false or genuine, the message about Christ is being preached either way. Ready? So I rejoice, and I will continue to rejoice. We're not talking about denial. If you've got haters, you've got negative circumstances, you've got critics, it's important to have your eyes wide open because actually sometimes God's going to show you stuff. Some of it's like a way out or a way forward or a way to deal with some of that stuff. But for the most part, our job isn't to fend off the haters, to reply to the haters. I mean, I'm married to a full-blooded Italian. Did you know in Italy, revenge is an Olympic sport? So here's the thing, right? I could get tempted to get back at the haters, earn myself a gold medal. Viva Italia! But no, that doesn't matter. I haven't got time for that. Our mission, dial up the mission, dial down the drama. Our mission is to reach people and build people, not convince people who, incidentally, are never going to get convinced anyway. All right, now, final thought, and I'll speak from personal experience without going into details. I'm personally aware, and so are many of you, that focusing and experiencing joy when circumstances are incredibly challenging, or let me say it even a slightly different way, those of you who are visual people. Focusing on joy when you feel like you're actually a little bit underwater, no pun intended. But do you know what I'm saying? Have you ever, you don't have to acknowledge, but have you ever just felt like, and when I say underwater, I'm talking about facing a circumstance that you feel you have absolutely no control over. A negative circumstance. You don't know if it's going to change, if it's going to change, when it's going to change, how it's going to change. It's just this feeling of being underwater. It is overwhelming. I mean, I'll tell you, I know it from personal experience. Sometimes a good day is like a few seconds of getting your nostrils above the water. So you go, and get back to learning to hold your breath. Life can be that way. No one's denying that. And I'm aware, and I appreciate some of you are aware, that when life's like that, focusing on the good news and reaching out for the joy that God's made available to us is actually very challenging. Can we just, adult conversation, can we just acknowledge it? It literally is. This isn't one of those, ask God to wave his wand and sprinkle some fairy dust over your life. It's like, you know what? God, this is horrible. So I just want to give you one little tip from my own life. Just pray a little every day when you're feeling underwater. Just pray a little. I'm not talking about going into the closet and an hour and a half. Princess, we were joking last week about spending 7 hours praying in tongues. No, I actually have a job. But just pray a little. Just pray a little every day. And I'll give you a little approach. And it's intentionally oversimple. Because when circumstances are overwhelming, you don't need complicated. You already have complicated. You need simple, doable, accessible, and it just looks like this. One prayer, 3 parts. Number 1, thanks. And the reason this is first is there's always something in our lives to be thankful for, always. But sometimes we have to look harder in order to find it. So just start with that. And it could be simply like this. God, thanks that even though my life's not good, I know you're good. Okay, that's it. That could be the prayer. Part 1, done. Move on. Wow. Once again, there's always something impressive around, something. This morning, Louie and I, we saw a double rainbow. And we went, wow. And I knew it was wow because Louie reached for her phone and took a picture. And why wouldn't you? Wow. Rainbow's a sign of God's promise. Wow, 2 rainbows. Well, that's a great day to be alive. Yeah, double promise. Woohoo. But just wow, anything. In Elevate Youth a few weeks ago, we were talking about wow. Let's talk about some things that you find wow. And these kids are great. One is talking about Marcus Rashford and Manchester United. Right now, Manchester United suck, but at least one of their players is half decent, although he recently got traded. Anyway, there's always something. Wow. And then this one. Help. And when you're underwater, this word is actually a full sentence. God, you even know better than I do what's going on here. I'm just help.
We really hope you got a lot out of this message. If you live in the Perth area, we'd love for you to join one of our live experiences. For times and directions, as well as information, head to our website, elevatechurch.me. For those of you beyond the Perth area, we'd love for you to connect with our online experience, which premieres every Sunday via YouTube and Facebook Live, and on demand immediately after. And to partner with us to reach more people by giving financially, head to our website elevatechurch.me and also download our Elevate Church AU app.